Why is Standard disappearing from our local game stores? This was a question posed by Aaron Forsythe of Wizards of the Coast about a week ago. And I don't know, Aaron, could it be that
You done messed up, Aaron!
there's more to it than them just simply messing up, and that's why we're here today. There's a slew of reasons why Standard is disappearing from the game stores, and that's what we're going to discuss today. These are simply my opinions, but a lot of players and other content creators do agree with some of my assessments. If you don't, let us know. If you have better ideas, also let us know in the comments below. For now, let's get into it. First and foremost in my mind is how they design Magic sets now. It used to be that Standard sets were simply built for Standard. Just as a few years ago, 6-7 years ago, that was what they did. They only designed with Standard in mind when it came to these releases of expansions, and they didn't actually care how it affected Modern and Legacy and all the other formats. It was just kind of a thing that happened because they kind of mixed up with the older cards. They didn't even test for it. Well, then here in the last few years, they got it in their head, well, no, we need to start selling the product to all the players. Commander, Modern, Legacy, everybody. And it's not working because you're jamming firepower in these sets that does not belong in a Standard environment. This is supposed to be your introductory format for players of this game. And if players are getting steamrolled by game-breaking cards all the time, it just doesn't work, and you're turning off players from sticking around that are introduced to the game. So think about it. You have Legacy and Modern picking up cards out of Standard now, like Lurus of the Dream Den and Expressive Iteration and stuff like that. And these cards have had to either be restricted, banned, or just weird things are happening. There's a high bar for these things to actually enter those formats, and they're entering at a much higher clip than they used to. And if they're actually getting hit with bans in those formats, they should have never been introduced into the Standard format in the first place. Tying in with the power level here, we've had numerous bans over the last 5 years in Standard, which is a huge uptick from the prior 6 years before. And this kind of brings me to my next point. Standard has needed numerous bans in the last 5 years just to keep the format stable. And that leads me to the whole point here of number 2 here on my list, instability in the Standard format as the reason why it's declined over the years. There was a huge gap from 2011 until 2017 where we had 17 expansion sets that were released, and we didn't require any bannings during that time period. The last ban in 2011 was Stoneforge Mystic and Jace the Mind Sculptor. And then in 2017, right at the beginning of the year, the banhammer fell hard on the format, and we lost Emrakul the Promised End, Reflector Mage, and Smuggler's Copter, and all of them that was the kickoff of the mass bannings we've seen in Standard over the last 5 years. Since then, we have had 27 bannings in Standard.
How many?
27. That is a huge amount of cards. When you think of those kind of levels of bans, you're thinking of like the Urza's block of power when that stuff got banned back in the late 90s. There was 11 cards banned in about a 7 to 8 month span back then. Well, in the last 5 years, 27 cards have just gotten hammered to death because they realized, oh, we kind of pushed the envelope a little too hard here. Well, yeah, you did. So now we're having to deal with all of this instability. Why would I want to spend money on some of these expensive rares? The last example of a banning, the Meat Hook Massacre, it was a $60 card, got banned, and now it's down to about $45 as of the time of this recording. But why would I buy a player set of 4 of those at $60 a flop, only to have them banned, and now I'm losing $20 a piece on trying to sell those cards off because it's only good in other formats, and the players might not even be playing those formats. On top of that, you're also putting more cost on your Standard players because then they either have to come up with new cards to replace the banned card, or they have to come up with an entirely new deck in order to even play the format because you've just destroyed their deck by banning something out of it. Next on my list of reasons why Standard is disappearing from the local gaming stores, Commander. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a big proponent of Commander, and if you've watched my channel long enough, most of my content is either in Commander or its bastard cousin, Historic Brawl, on the Arena client.
Bastard.
That said, some point here in the last couple of years, the powers that be at Wizards decided that they needed to focus on selling things to the Commander crowd. They kind of realized that there's a lot more people playing Commander than there are playing Standard or any of the other formats. So they keep pushing more and more things into the actual standard sets, which this goes along hand in hand with the whole how they design them differently now. You see cards more and more now that say like each opponent or each player or some variation thereof that will work in a multiplayer setting. On top of that, they've also decided to just create massive amounts of pre-constructed decks. There's actually 19 of them this year alone.
Holy shit!
Versus, it used to be 4 or 5 of them in one big burst, what used to be known as Commander Christmas every year. I kind of miss that. And it's just become a big ball of Commander. And it's kind of said, okay, well, who cares about Standard? And why should I care about Standard? Commander and other singleton type formats, I need one copy of a card. That's it. I don't need a full player set of 4 like I do in competitive Modern or even in Standard or Pioneer or anything like that. It's just not a compelling reason to want to play Standard if I need 4 copies of a card. And a big example of this is, in personal anecdote, my local gaming store actually stopped doing Standard. They stopped messing around with Pioneer. They do 3 nights of exclusive Commander pods on Sundays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I believe the dates are. And they had started doing like a Modern Monday here just real recently, but they hadn't been doing that prior to this month. So, I don't know. It's showing now more and more that Standard is almost a defunct format. And a really big example of this is actually my last point. It's the choice of formats that these tournament organizers are choosing to do. A few years back, Pioneer was born, and Star City Games and the old Channel Fireball, before they went out, they were just picking up Pioneer and getting rid of Standard events because of all the instability and all the bannings and everything else that was going on. They couldn't trust that Wizards wasn't going to screw up their events on short notice. So they decided, okay, let's just go with a format that doesn't rotate and go with it. So yesterday there was actually a post on Twitter where they posted the number of participants at the Star City Games convention in Philadelphia, and the numbers are staggering. Take a look at this. Right now, if you look at it, I highlighted it, 0 Standard players participated in the event the entire weekend. None. That's insanity. And then you look at Pioneer, Modern, even Legacy had more players there to participate in events. But right now, people are not looking forward to playing Standard events, and they're not being promoted in any way, shape, or form. So why should anyone give a damn about Standard? That's really a major sign of how bad this is. Wizards of the Coast themselves don't even use Standard with their arena opens all that often in their play-in tournaments. Recently, it's like, okay, Sealed, Draft, even the much maligned Alchemy has been pushed out there in front of everybody instead of Standard, which is what the client was originally built for. So you're not even giving us a compelling reason to want to care about Standard when you're shoving all these other formats in front of our faces. When is it going to stop? You want to know why it's disappearing? Look in the mirror, Wizards. You're the reason. With that said, thank you for watching. If you agree with what I have said here, let me know in the comments below. If you think there's even more reasons, add them down below. If you disagree, I want to know. I want to know what you think about this. And as always, have a great day.